Welcome to the Sales Whisper Podcast, session 27. Can you grow with humble confidence? David DeWolf, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Wes. It's great to be here.
Hey, so, we had a short intro leading up to this, but for those that don't know you, I mean, you're a run-of-the-mill guy like me, right? Making it happen, making babies, raising a family. Can you give us a little thumbnail view of who you are and what you do?
Sure. Well, I think you just hit it on the head there. I am, at the core, I am a husband and a father. I've got a wonderful family. I've got 6 kids, 4 girls, 2 boys, between the ages of 3 and 12. But in terms of during the day, my wife is the saint. She takes care of the family and holds down the fort and allows me to be an entrepreneur. So I am a technologist at heart when it comes to my day job. I love innovation. I love software, solving real-world problems, leveraging software to do it. And 7 years ago, I struck out on my own in order to help other companies build phenomenal software products. And fast forward to today, and we have an organization of about 650 employees that, working with everything from the smallest innovative companies that are startups all the way up to the Fortune 500 and large enterprises, really helping them build software products. So, it is a busy life. You're right. We're making things happen, but I try to balance all of that together and make sure that I'm weighing all those priorities and driving things forward.
Very nice. Well, what are the odds, son? 2 guys with 2 boys and 4 girls get on a podcast together.
All at the same time.
Very nice. Well, you were, as we were talking earlier, you were referred to me by a friend of mine. So she's in a group that I've got on LinkedIn, it's Catholic Networkers, and she's, said, hey, I'm looking for interesting people to interview. She sent me your way, and I had not heard of you, had not heard of your company, and I started reading about it, and I'm like, holy smokes. It's 3 Pillar Global is your main business, right?
That is correct, yes. And what we do is we work with companies to build software products. So there are a lot of software companies, services companies out there that are helping others with their technology. Our niche is helping companies build software that's actually going to touch their customer and drive their growth. Ultimately, it helps them drive revenue. The difference between building a product and building just a piece of software for the IT department is that you have to delight your customers. It has to be pleasurable to use, has to build loyalty, and typically people want to pay for a product. They choose to use it. And so there are some unique things about that, and that's where our niche is. And it's been a lot of fun helping companies. For example, we work with PBS, public broadcasting. We do all their interactive media and help them with a suite of products that gets their content out into the hands of their consumers. So that would be an example of the type of thing that we do.
Cool. So, in looking at your background, you went to Steubenville, and those that may not be aware of it, it's a very religious, faith-based institution of higher learning, right? You didn't go to MIT or something.
Right.
So you go to this faith-based college, and then you are this big success in the secular world. Can you kind of walk us through? Because to me, I found that encouraging, especially, my oldest is a junior, starting to look at colleges.
Sure.
And it's like, hey, I want you to live your faith, but it's like, I also don't want you in the poorhouse, right? Like we were talking about, but you right. were able to further your faith, but then also succeed in corporate America. Can you kind of walk us through that transition and how you made that happen?
Yeah, absolutely. Going to Franciscan was a phenomenal experience for me. And, I think it struck a chord with who I was as a person. Like you said, wanting to learn, wanting to prepare for a career and, educate myself and really learn, but at the same time, wanting to do that in an environment that was true to the values that I held as a Catholic and as a man of God, and wanting to make sure that I was able to integrate those two things together. And that, throughout my entire career, has been such a huge part of who I am. I say that my mission is to be in the world, but not of the world. I really feel called to be in secular business. Really, when I was at Franciscan, I was studying communications, and thought that I was going to get into the media business. Radio and television was my goal. What happened was after school, I went down to Dallas, Texas, where my wife is originally from. And as I was starting my career, I quickly learned that radio and television wasn't necessarily the place where I could support a family as it was starting to grow. And knowing that I was about to get married, ended up finding a job in the advertising agency. And that was really at the height of the dot-com boom, and found an agency that was just starting to get into web development, and very quickly started consulting through this advertising agency. And the first consulting engagement I had was actually building a website for a software company. And so that company was actually in Silicon Valley. And so I was traveling out there, and very quickly learned that I absolutely loved building something out of nothing. And I fell in love with the software industry. Was very, very fortunate to have a great mentor that I learned quite a bit from. So even though I didn't have a technical background, very quickly I had really the lead software architect and engineer at the company really taking me under his wing. And interestingly enough, not just from a technology perspective, but really from a life perspective. He was a great Christian man that taught me a lot about how to be in the world, but not of the world, and how to be successful in my career and be able to integrate all of those parts of my life together. And that really is what launched my career in technology. And what I found over the years is if you absolutely love what you do, if you're passionate and you enjoy what you're doing, then it's a lot easier to be successful in it. And so I just continued to pursue my passions. And over time, that love for software began to funnel itself into, I learned what kind of software I loved to write and create. And what I found was that I loved building things that had a real impact, that changed the way we work, the way we live, and the way we play, and really impacts people's lives. And that's how I was drawn to the product business. And about 7 years ago, in 2006, I decided that after spending my career in consulting as a software developer and architect, that it was time to strike out on my own. And quite honestly, I started the company. I started 3 Pillar Global simply as an independent consultant. I just wanted to earn a living, but doing what I love to do. I wanted to be able to choose the products I was working on and choose the teams I was working on. And through that, I really found a niche that grew without me even thinking about it. And I think it was that commitment to following my passion and being convicted in what I believed, right? I truly wanted to add value to my clients. I wanted to work with team members. I was committed to, really running in teams and executing with teams that respected each and every individual, and working with organizations to never forget the day when I was driving down the highway and it literally hit me like a ton of bricks. Oh my goodness, I have 6 employees working for me. Yeah. And I never remember deciding to hire the first one. It just kind of happened to me. And I would say that was the point in time when the business began to take off. Is I stepped back and I realized that it was all about pursuing passion. I realized that it was about being convicted by the way you do things and working with integrity and adding value to your clients and respecting the individuals you work with. Those core things I was able to step back with, hold on to, and then figure out how to navigate a market. And I would say, going back to my time in Steubenville, absolutely the things that I learned there, I often say that leadership and having the opportunity to lead certain organizations on campus, my faith and what I learned about my faith and how to integrate that into work, all of those things played an absolutely critical role. So while I don't necessarily have the MBA from Stanford or the MIT undergraduate, I've learned from the School of Hard Knocks, but at the same time have reached back into the education I did have at Steubenville, and I think am able to bring some different things to the table that maybe the normal entrepreneur or executive doesn't have the ability to do.
Right. So in other words, the non-technical people should not be afraid of getting into a technical field if that's what they're drawn to.
See, I should have just deferred to you in the first place. Well said. I really believe it. Follow your passion.
We got to fill up the time. I can't be up precise, man. I want that passion coming out. So let's go back. The passion is fantastic. Mm-hmm. What do we tell our listeners that may be analytical, right? Or they've got the fire in the belly, but they're still a little scared. Because, I mean, when you start your own business, you already had kids, right? I mean, you had.
I did. I had 3 at the time, and was I think my wife was pregnant with the 4th or shortly thereafter.
Okay, yeah. I mean, because you're like me. I mean, looking back in the last several years, it's safer to assume our wives there was more time our wives were pregnant than not pregnant. So
right, right. That's right.
Chances are we were pregnant. All right, and so walk us through that decision process, and what did you do to actually say, okay, I'm in business, right? Did you did you quit cold turkey? Did you kind of warm up the company, say, hey, maybe in 6 months I'm going to be making a break?
Right.
Did you go into debt? Did you get a loan? Did you just bootstrap it from, your bedroom and say, hey, honey, I'm sorry, I got to take a call? I mean, walk us through that.
Yeah, so, for me, I guess it was a little bit fortunate. The consulting company that I was working at the time was acquired. And it was acquired by a venture-backed company that quite honestly, you look at this and it makes so much sense, but so many companies forget it. Whenever an investor comes in and makes an investment, they're looking for a return on the investment. And it absolutely should be expected, and everybody should drive a return for their investor. That said, too often, pure financial investors forget why there was value in the first place. And they began to tear down the culture and the dynamics that led to the growth and led to the value that they invested in. Right. And that's what happened at the company I was working for. It just began to, within a very short period of time, ripped apart the culture and the passion that we had as an organization. And I saw that happen, and I was just convicted that I couldn't live there anymore. I just couldn't continue my career. And I went from thinking I'd be there for the rest of my career to thinking, my goodness, we're not focused on driving value to our clients, and we're not focused on respecting all of the employees and really respecting what they bring to the table. We're only focused on the financial metrics, and they don't realize that the financial metrics are a result of all these other things and the good things about the company. And so that kind of pushed me out the door, and the choice I had was, am I going to go find another consulting company and continue this road, or do I want to take control of my career and be able to choose the environment I work in and the types of products that I build? And I was dealing with this about 6 months after the acquisition. The acquisition happened in January of 2006. And right around June, July timeframe, I was on summer vacation with my wife's family. And my wife's brother, my brother-in-law, it just happened to tell the story one night about an opportunity he had to buy a business that he was working in a couple years before. And he literally said, it was the biggest regret of my life is that I was too scared to pursue that option. Mm-hmm. And that was it. I never remember actually deliberating and thinking through. It was just that moment I heard that story and I said, my gosh, this is what I'm supposed to do. I'm going to do it. Now, what made it a little bit safer for me was that I had been in the software industry for a while. I had worked at consulting companies where I had, for example, working at Frito-Lay for a period of time and drove millions of dollars of revenue through some of the work I had done. So I knew I could be successful, and this wasn't a brand new industry for me. It was just, instead of working for somebody else as a consultant, I was going to do it myself. And then the other thing was, over the past couple of years before that, I also had been doing some public speaking and some different things, very active in the open source software communities, writing software that people were aware of. So I had a little bit of a name. And so literally what I did was I started putting feelers out, and I just reached out to my network, people I knew, and very quickly somebody raised their hand and said, hey, I know a company you've got to talk to. And I ended up landing a 6-month contract. And I figured, okay, I've got a 6-month runway. I can go, I can do something that I'm great at. I know I can do this initial contract, and then it gives me 6 months to figure it out. And so that gave me the cash flow I needed to be able to support my family and get off the ground. And then I went out and I borrowed an additional $40,000 just to make sure I had some extra padding and money in the bank in case a disaster happened. And I had a goal of paying that back by the time the first year was up, and I was able to do that and deliver on that and pay that off. But that's how I bootstrapped the company and how it all came together. I think if I had to think about about it more, if I was more deliberate about it, hearing that story, landing that contract, and then just moving and going was a key part of it for me.
Right. Where did you get that loan? I mean, did you already had good credit? Did you get it from a bank? I mean, not everybody can go get $40,000. Were you still employed and you got the loan, then you went out on your own?
Yeah, I was still employed at that time, and I actually had, I had some savings and different things, but what I didn't want to do was draw down my 401k and everything, and so I got all the financing set up, before I left, and then went out and was able to just have that. The $40,000 literally sat in the bank for the whole time. I never had to tap into it, but I had it just in case I needed it, and while I built up this revenue stream.
Right. Cool. So now your company is how big? Several hundred employees?
We have 600, just over 600 employees. Our headquarters is here in Fairfax, Virginia, and we have offices in New York, Boston, and California that we just opened up, as well as an office in London, and then we have large delivery centers in Romania and India. And so we've got a bit of spread throughout the world here.
So like you mentioned, not remembering hiring your first few people.
Right.
And now you have hundreds.
Right.
I mean, has it been a goal? I mean, once you got going, did you say, hey, I want to build this big company? Or has it been more generic, like I just want to do the best I can, and it just so happens that adding these type of people and growing this way fulfills that goal?
Right. Well, I think it's a little bit of a few different aspects. Number one is when I first had this aha moment I told you about and was driving down the highway and realized I had employees, I had to make a very deliberate decision. Was I going to continue to write software and actually do the coding 60 hours a week, or was I going to run a business? And what I figured out at that point in time was that it wasn't the act of writing software that I loved. What I loved was making something out of nothing. And I realized that I could build a business out of nothing, just like I could write software out of nothing. And through that, I'd be able to be involved in all sorts of different software products. And so I made that deliberate decision. And that, I think, changed our course because I was deliberate about that. The other thing that I realized was I stepped back and said, why have we grown without even trying? And what I realized was some of the aspects I talked to before, but also that there was a void in the market, that the way software products are built today, or at that point in time back then, was there were two different extremes. On one hand, you had very small boutique consultancies like ourselves that, quite honestly, were very high priced, but delivered very rapid time to market, high innovation, high quality. Or on the other extreme, you had the very low-cost offshore services companies that were modeled after just the pure IT world. And companies were struggling with both because on one hand, they couldn't sustain and continue to innovate with the high prices, but they loved the results. On the opposite side, they were drawn to the cost of an offshore model, but they simply couldn't get the innovation, the quality, and the time of market out of it. Right. And so what we did was we brought these two worlds together to create a solution that didn't exist in the marketplace. And through that, the market embraced it. Now, as you're doing that and the market starts to come to life, you begin to get excited about it. And what we see is a void in the market for how do you build software products that engage users. And we see software is becoming more and more important. Software today is really your brand, right? You touch your customer through your software in most cases more often than any other way. It is also the growth engine of society. More and more traditional businesses are becoming software product companies. Think about Nike. Nike is no longer an athletic apparel company. They're no longer even a marketing organization. They're investing in things like Nike Fuel Band that is collecting information and data, and then they're selling it back to you through their software. Right? Think about it. It's amazing. So here are these traditional industries, and there's yet at the same time this void for companies that know how to build software products that customers love to use. And so as we identified that opportunity, quickly what happened is my goal is we want to win that space. We want to be not the biggest. The biggest doesn't really matter to us. What matters to us is we want to be the most respected software product development company. We want to be known. We want to be synonymous with innovation, with building software products that truly solve this growth problem, this growth imperative that companies have, and help especially these traditional enterprises that aren't necessarily software companies become software companies and help them innovate. And the reality is that technology is moving so fast that you can't do it without a partner today. And so that's our goal. That's what's driving our growth, is that desire to be the most respected, the desire to win the space and to really stand out from the competition as not one of these extremes we talked about, but that company that's really figured out how to do it really well and is known for helping to innovate.
Right. So for those that are still of the employee mindset, which is just fine, what would you say to them? I mean, you're growing rapidly, you're hiring people, but I got to imagine it's still hard to find good people, even in this economy.
Sure.
What would you say to those that are just looking for a better career? Maybe they're frustrated where they are. You know, what do you and your company, your team, what do y'all look for in good employees, and how does somebody stand out, you know, where they are or find, you know, the company of their dreams where they are a good match?
Sure. Well, I think the first thing for any employee is just what you said, is knowing what the employer of your dreams is, right? If you know what you're passionate about and what you want to do, can you also define the culture that you want to work in? What type of environment? You know, there's a difference between being in a startup company and being in a large enterprise. And neither one is good or bad, quite honestly. They're just different.
Yep.
There's also a difference in a mid-market company, right? Understand those dynamics and think about, where do you thrive? What are your skill sets? You know, if you go into a large enterprise, it's funny. I was actually just at Franciscan University earlier this year. I go back and do some student mentoring once a year. And I was talking to students, and there's some students that come in and their goal is, hey, in the first couple of years, in the first couple of years, I want to learn as much as I can. I want to go through a formal training process. I want to be structured and learn disciplines. Well, then go to a large company and soak that up. You know, you can go to an Accenture and go through a phenomenal training program. There are other people that say, you know, I want to experience everything. I want my hands involved in all aspects of the business. Well, those would lend themselves to startup environments where you can just go and be passionate and do, and they're looking for that utility player. You know, neither of those is bad, but understand where you're going with your career. I mean, I think it's important to have vision, know where you want to get to, and then navigate there deliberately. What I see all too often in employees is that they let their career happen to them, and they don't know what they want, and they don't pursue their passion. I think you should pursue it. You know, I am so fortunate, much like you, Wes, right? I wake up every day and I love what I do. My wife makes fun of me because I don't have a hobby. And I say, I'm just lucky, sweetie. I get paid to do my hobby. I love business. And I get to wake up every day and do it. And I feel so bad for people that don't have that. And I think if you want to find that dream job, you've got to be able to define that dream job. You've got to be able to go deliberately pursue it so that you can love it.
Right. So how important are good salespeople to your company?
Isn't it everything? I mean, nobody ever finds enough good salespeople. The problem with finding salespeople, quite frankly, is that it's such a crapshoot. I mean, it is so hard to find phenomenal individuals who really, number one, were comfortable representing the business. But number two, our sale is a very consultative sale. And you need to be able to not just schlep product, right? That's not at all what we do. It's a consultative sale. You've got to be able to understand our client's business. And you've got to go in and build that rapport and build that relationship and build it to the point that when they have the need, they're going to call, and that you're able to develop that trusted advisor type relationship relationship where you can engage and really help clients solve a problem and help them think about the problem differently. And then on top of that, because we're creating a new market, because we're truly trying to stand out as different within our space and not just the same run-of-the-mill product development company that's done it one of these two extreme ways, a lot of times there's actually, before we even get to the sales process, there's an evangelization process. We have to teach our clients that there's a new way to think about this before they even decide if we're the right ones for the job. And so because of that, it's a complex sale. It's hard to scale a sales organization. And really, I mean, in any company, if you're looking to grow, if you're looking to capture that mind share and become the most respected, you need great people on the street, building those relationships and helping you penetrate new markets. It's absolutely essential.
What kind of processes have you put in place to bring on good salespeople, and how involved are you in bringing on an individual salesperson? Yeah, so
probably it's a great thing. It's a great step we've been able to take. Is that I'm lucky now. I've been able to hire a team of executives that's 10 times better than I ever was at every aspect of the business. So I'm not as good. I'm not as involved day to day in the actual recruiting of salespeople. But I'll tell you, sales is one of a handful of roles that is so critical and so important to us that I absolutely do talk to every single one of our sales executives before we hire them.
Cool.
And so, I'm typically that final interview that says, I think we've discerned this right, and I think this is the right move. And sometimes, quite frankly, it's a sales pitch the other way of me convincing them that this is a place with great vision that you want to be part of. Mm-hmm. And so, I typically spend a good 45 minutes at minimum, sometimes up to an hour and a half, with our sales executives before they come on board. But what I've got is a phenomenal leader, my EVP that runs sales and marketing, has a great background of working with both entrepreneurial and high growth companies, but also large enterprises, that has put those processes in place, that knows how to look for the right people, the characteristics. But we also marry that with a very strong HR organization where every employee that we hire goes through a cultural interview with our HR department, and the cultural interview is actually has the veto right. If somebody is not a cultural fit for our organization, mm-hmm. I don't care how skilled you are, I don't care how good you are at what you're going to do. If you don't match from a values perspective or from a cultural perspective, it's just not going to work. And that's proven itself out time and time again. And so we hold true to that. And while that person doesn't get to make the ultimate decision, they do get a veto right. And we stay very true to that. And so I think that's one of the unique things that really allows the process to work, and making sure that we get the right people on the bus, not just good people on the bus.
So think back to someone you vetoed, like they made it all the way through, they got to you, and you said, no, I don't think so. What can you put your finger on something, that made you make that decision?
Where I see it more often than not is it comes down to those cultural issues that we're talking about. Mm-hmm. And many times it may be a character issue. That I just have a third sense that there may be something, or sixth sense. I don't know why I said third sense. That's funny. A sixth sense that, something's not right here. I'm just not getting that connection. And as I start to dig into it, uncover, maybe there was a shady deal that I don't feel quite right about, or maybe there was the way, very aggressive salespeople sometimes throw elbows through the sales process, and they're going to plow over the organization. Well, we're very big. One of our cultural values is the dignity and respect of every single employee. Well, if you're not going to respect the rest of the organization, I don't care how much you sell. And so sometimes the process can get caught up in finding the right person that's blown away their numbers, but they come in and they're not necessarily a cultural fit, or they don't necessarily have the same character attributes that I might look for. Those types of things, I think, more often than not, quite honestly, it's very rare. I think our culture is very ingrained and it's in our DNA. I can only think of, it's less than one hand could count for sure. It's probably 2 or 3 situations where I've actually had to veto somebody. But those are the cases where I see it. And those are often, sometimes what I'll have is somebody say, we really like this person, but there's something about them we're not 100% convinced. Will you talk to them? And this is what I want you to look for. This is what I want you to pick in on. And typically it's related to those soft skills, the character, the values, those types of things where it's hardest to discern because you can't measure those or you can't compare past performance on those. That's a fit thing. And fit is oftentimes gut, but pulling out those examples and really looking for how are the stories told and do they give you any inclinations to how this person thinks.
What are kind of the most common reasons you let people go?
The most common. Well, this is an interesting question because obviously when you have a values-driven organization, any values violation, you immediately let somebody go. But that very rarely happens in a values-driven organization. So the most common reasons, those aren't common at all because it simply doesn't happen most of the time. You know what the hardest thing is, though, for a values-driven organization? When you care about the dignity and the respect of individuals, when your entire culture revolves around doing the right thing, it's oftentimes hard to objectively look and say, this person isn't performing. And because of that, we need to move on. And it seems on the surface to be counter to that compassion for the person. But in reality, it's not. It's how you do it, right? And so what I've found is that it's very, very important to be able to have those objective measures, to be honest with people about how they're performing, to have those hard conversations, but to make sure that the organization really gets rid of those people in the right way. How do we support them as they move on? How do we have the conversation that says, you know what, you're a great person, but you're not a fit for our organization and you haven't been able to deliver because of this and this and this. Have you thought about what that next career step is? And maybe we can help you define what that is. And oh, by the way, if you go pursue that, I'd be happy to help you and make introductions or provide a reference for a role that you would excel in, because now we know you well enough to do that. And so I think a lot of times organizations, especially values-driven organizations, are blinded by this false sense of compassion, when in reality, a lot of times those employees that are let go are actually relieved when you have that conversation because they know they're not performing and they're ready to go find that job they are passionate about and can excel at. And so I think that's actually the hardest aspect is making those discernments and figuring out those situations and then making sure you execute in that manner.
So talk to us about DavidDeWolf.com. What are you doing there? Humble confidence.
Yeah. So, that is my blog. And quite frankly, it started out really as I began to grow this business. I had so many things that I wanted to capture. I literally learned something new every single day. I say oftentimes to our employees and other people that every day that goes by, I am running the largest organization I've ever run in my life. So it's a continual learning experience, and I didn't want to lose those lessons. And so, I don't know, it was probably back in 2009, several years ago, I just started writing them down and jotting them down and blogging about them for my own sake. But then I also realized that by doing that, I had an opportunity to share some of these lessons and really, even more importantly to me, share my philosophy about how to run a values-based organization, how to run an organization that can perform well, but at the same time, do it with integrity and do it with character and do it while treating people right. And so I started to see it not just as a way to capture my own thoughts, but to share with the world some different ideas on how I go about doing that. And I've been fortunate because, I've been able to learn from a lot of great people. Very early on in the company, I built a board of directors that, quite frankly, I didn't need to, but I figured I wanted to surround myself with people that had done this before and I could learn from. And so I went and found the best people I could and surrounded myself with them. I've been able to attract a phenomenal executive team that I can learn from. I want to return that favor. And if there are people that can learn from my experiences or see some of the techniques I use for being a, quote, successful businessman, and how I integrate that with my life, I want to share those things. And I'm passionate about these things. And so why wouldn't I want to share those so other people can take it and run? And I think a big part of that goes back to the humble confidence, right? Whenever people ask me about, the characteristics of an entrepreneur, I always say a lot of people will tell you that the biggest characteristic is that an entrepreneur is stubborn and they are hard-headed and they don't listen to the naysayers.
I am not stubborn.
But we hear it all the time, right?
They're wrong.
They are. That's right. What I like to say is, there's an element of truth there. We are very confident people. But I also believe that humility is so important. I would say that while I have never listened to a naysayer and I'm absolutely stubborn about the vision that I have for this company, my success has been driven by the fact that in that stubbornness, in that confidence, I'm able to be humble. And I can tell you, I have navigated that path to my vision because of other people that have been around me. And because of my willingness to say, I don't know everything. In fact, I know barely anything, but I can collect information. I can figure out what's relevant and I can apply it to that vision. And that vision has even morphed over time itself. And so I think both aspects, and it's this strange dichotomy that is so important, I think, for an entrepreneur. You have to be confident. You have to ignore the naysayers. And I've had plenty of people tell me, what the heck are you doing? You'll never make it. You can't do this. At the same time, you have to listen to those that are truly trying to help you, and you have to listen to what the market's saying, and you have to adjust your plans and navigate. And I think where a lot of, quote, entrepreneurs get in trouble is the ones that don't make it to the next level kind of fall down because they are so stubborn that they never listen to the market or to what other people are telling them, and they don't figure out how to navigate towards success. They only do what's in their own head, and they're egotistical in their stubbornness as opposed to having humble confidence.
Right. Very nice. So for people, I'm on the David DeWolf, and I've got 3 Pillar Global. So where should people reach out to you? Obviously, follow you on daviddewolf.com.
Sure.
And you're going to pick me, right, for the giveaway? I want the
absolutely.
giveaway.
Sign up for the newsletter. Right. Yeah, I give a digital product of some sort away every single month. Last month, so funny, I gave away a premium subscription to Evernote, which I know a lot of people use, and it's a part of my life, my core day-to-day note-taking and stuff. And I got a response. The person couldn't believe he actually won something. He said, the last time I won something, it was a small fry at McDonald's, right? So, this month I'm giving away a digital copy of the book Death by Meeting by Patrick Lencioni. And it's a book that if you've never read it, you absolutely should. It's changed the way I think about meetings and talks about how to stop having boring meetings that put people to sleep and how do you create enthusiasm around the things that you have to get done and really take your meetings to the next level. I found it to be powerful, so I'm giving it away to my readers and those that subscribe. So sign up, and hopefully you will win, Wes.
Cool. So who does your website? Is this a WordPress?
It is. It's a WordPress blog. I use the
Get Noticed theme.
The Get Noticed theme, if you're familiar with that. One of the people that I look to is Michael Hyatt. Uh-huh. Michael Hyatt is the former CEO and chairman of Thomas Nelson Publishers, but has left, and now he has a business where he's helping other leaders optimize their influence. And through that, he has this WordPress theme that I leverage because it makes my life simple. I don't have to worry about any of that coding anymore, different things. I just get to publish content and worry about the things that I do best. So
yeah, it's beautiful.
That's what it's at.
Where do you get your images? These are fantastic.
Those are all iStock images. Nice. So iStock photo, and in this, it's funny how relevant the product mindset that we use at 3 Pillar is to all aspects of life. Usability and pleasure is so important we live in such a noisy world. If I truly want to influence people and get the word out there about this, management philosophy that I believe in, it's got to be pleasurable. So I think, I go and I spend money to buy these images and post on the blog because without it, it's just another blob of text. And I'm looking to capture users and really influence people. I want to move my tribe, so to speak.
Yeah, very nice. All right, now I have an important question to end the interview here, all right? I need to know, should I start Darren Sproles in my fantasy football this week? Because I did not start him last week, and he went crazy, and I lost. I was 7-2, man. Now I'm 7-3.
Oh, man. Okay, so here's the deal, Wes. And this is the secret of any entrepreneur. I'll tell you, the reason why you probably made the wrong decision is because you're an entrepreneur. Because if you were to rewind my life 6 years, I spent way too much time on my fantasy football lineups. Quite frankly, my fantasy football, my fantasy basketball, my fantasy baseball, every fantasy sport in the world, I'd spent way too much time on. And I literally had to give it up 4 years ago because it was so time consuming. And as a business started to grow, I said, priorities, I've got to cut this out. Well, this year is the first year I'm playing again after a 4-year hiatus. And I'm only playing for 2 reasons. Number one is we have an office a league. And so, want to spend some time with the employees, and it's fun just around the office banter. But number 2 is actually that my 10-year-old son is playing for the first time.
Oh, nice.
So I said, well, why don't you play with us in the office league, and we'll kill 2 birds with 1 stone. And so the real answer to your question is I have to ask my son because he advises me on who to play.
All right. Well, send me an email. But
Okay.
hey, but I will counter your assumption there. This is the only league I've ever played with some college buddies. And I spend about 5 minutes a week on it.
See, you're better than I am. I can't do that. I get so addicted.
Oh, I was never that into it, and my buddies were, hey, you got to do it. I think it was about 5 years ago I started with them, and maybe 6 now. I don't know. It's been a while. And, no, I looked at him, man. He had 8 points, 13 points, 6, 1. I'm like, this dude, he put up 33 back on week 4, right? So you're like, oh, I'm fired up. He's all right. So I bench him, and he goes off, and I lost.
So the big lesson I learned early on in my fantasy sports career is you never bench your stars. If you have a stud, you play him, no matter how he's trending. Yeah. Because as soon as you bench him, he blows up.
That's what happened. All right. Well, I've got him in the lineup.
Very good. And hopefully you have Peyton Manning, too, because that guy is just having an incredible year, isn't he?
Oh, I don't. I've had to juggle Rivers, Cam Newton, and Cutler. It's been it's been a juggle.
That is tough.
Good grief. Well, hey, remember, if you pick me on your register to win, remember, an Apple iPad is a digital product. Okay?
It is. It absolutely is.
Oh, yeah. So
I tell you what, this is what I'll do for you. If you get a significant number of your listeners to subscribe, let's pick a number.
Okay.
How many subscribers should it be? If we get that many subscribers in the next month, then I'll give an iPad out next month. What number do you want it to be?
Woo! All right. Well, you know what? So I'll share this. I'm going to push this out. I don't know, about 8,000 people.
Okay.
So now, just because I push it out doesn't mean they're going to gobble it up.
Okay.
But I don't know. I'd say you need at least 100. Right?
All right.
At least 100 to make.
There's your number. If we get 100 people to sign up between now and the end of November, then my December giveaway is going to be an iPad. And what I'll do is I will make everybody that has signed up within these last 2 months eligible, not just those that sign up in December. That way, the people that helped create the opportunity get to participate.
Very nice. Well, I will have this cleaned up and posted. I don't know, probably Monday. I'm giving a TEDx talk this Saturday, and I've got a
perfect.
Good grief! I've been, I'm a shoot from the hip kind of presenter, right? Now to have something really formal and tight for 18 minutes, it's hard, man. It's hard.
It is. So this is what I got to tell you. You remember I was telling you about Michael Hyatt,
right?
And he's got a platform conference. One of his other conferences is the SCORE conference. He does that with Ken Davis.
Okay.
I just went to it 4 weeks ago. It's all about giving talks. And I'm the same way. I'm a shoot from the hip guy, but they teach you to prepare, and it has taken my public speaking to the next level.
Yep.
I don't get paid for this at all, but I'll give it the biggest plug. It is literally, I used it in a board meeting a couple of weeks ago. Mm-hmm. It was so helpful, but they make you give a 5-minute speech every single night. I tell you what, if you can't do it in 18 minutes, try doing it in 5. Mm-hmm. That'll teach you to pare it down, huh?
I know. The shorter, I forget who it was, like Franklin or one of those guys, they said, you want me to speak for an hour? I'll start right now. You want me to speak for half an hour? Give me 10 minutes. You want me to speak for 5 minutes, give me a week. And that's about what it is. I mean, the shorter it is, the more you got to prepare.
I'm with you. Well, best of luck with that.
Hey, thank you very much. And thanks for taking the time. And again, everybody listening, the links will be in the on the show notes. And it's David DeWolf, DeWolf, DavidDeWolf.com, and 3 pillarglobal.com if you need some software.
Awesome. Hey, Wes, thank you so much. I really enjoyed the conversation.
Hey, thank you. Take care, David.
All right. Bye-bye.
So how you like them apples, huh? You get it? Go visit right now, daviddewolf.com, sign up for his newsletter, and be eligible to win an iPad. That's pretty cool. I did not know he was going to do that. David was recommended to me through my LinkedIn group. I started a group years ago called Catholic Networkers, and it's a private group on LinkedIn. And I said, hey, I'm looking for interesting people to interview, and his name was recommended. And, what a great story. Hearing somebody, living his faith, living the way he wants, focus on providing value, focus on providing great service, following his passion. He's built up this 650-plus person company. So I hope that was inspiring to you. It was interesting hearing, how he got that loan just as a cushion, but he didn't need it. What he did before he left, though, was interesting, and you can do this if you're still in a job and you want to go out on your own. He was building a name for himself. He didn't even, I don't think he was even trying to, but when he was just passionate about what he was doing, and he was delivering keynote talks and whatnot, and he was just an employee. He was not the owner or the manager. He was just passionate about what he did. It was a hobby as well for him, developing code in this open source community. So by being the best, it laid the groundwork for him to start his own business. So if you're not happy where you are, and you need something else, before you make that transition, make sure you're doing all that you can where you are. The good old blossom where you're planted. Okay? And I think 2 things will happen. At a minimum, you'll be a little happier, or at least a little less miserable where you are until you move along. But you'll also be laying the groundwork for that as an eventual transition. But you know what? A third thing may happen, and that is you may find that you're happy and fulfilled where you are once you really are giving it your all. Okay, but it's not going to hurt anything. It's only going to help you, your business, your company, your clients, your future self by giving your all. So again, I hope you found this of interest. Thank you for listening. Be sure to sign up for David's newsletter, daviddewolf.com. Please share this podcast with others. Please leave a comment on the blog. This is session 27. Leave a comment on iTunes. All those things help me grow, helps me continue to provide free resources so you can grow. And as always, thank you for listening. And remember to sell different.